All right, welcome to the Explainer. If you've ever stared at your paycheck, seen that tax deduction, and just wondered, where does all that money actually go? Well, you're definitely not alone. Today we're going to dig into why government spending seems to have only one gear, up.
Yeah, it's a feeling we can all relate to, right? It doesn't matter if you're looking at the huge national budget numbers or just your own tax bill. It always feels like those figures are climbing. But here's the thing. It's not just happening by chance. There are some really powerful forces driving this, and we're about to break them all down.
And to really get a sense of the scale here, just look at these numbers. In India, the central government spending absolutely skyrocketed. We're talking from about 900 crore rupees back in 1950 to almost 39 lakh crore by 2016. And just so we're all on the same page, 1 lakh crore is a trillion rupees. That is a mind-boggling jump. And trust me, it's not just because of inflation.
Okay, so to really understand a number that big, we first have to get on the same page. We need to kind of learn the language of government finance. So let's kick things off by figuring out what public spending even is, and how it all gets sorted out.
So at its heart, public expenditure is pretty simple. It's just the government, whether that's central, state, or local, spending our money on stuff we all need as a society but couldn't really buy on our own. Think about it. Things like national defense, or big public parks, or massive highways. It's all about taking care of our collective needs.
But here's a key thing to get. Not all spending is the same. It helps to think about it just like your own budget. You've got revenue expenditure, which is kind of like the government's monthly bills. Paying salaries, buying fuel, basically just keeping the lights on. It's absolutely essential, but it's not creating anything new. Then you have capital expenditure. That's the big stuff. That's the government investing in the future. Building new schools, new roads, new dams, assets that are going to benefit the country for years and years to come. And you can slice it another way too. Spending to grow versus spending to maintain. Developmental spending, that's all about investing in our future. We're talking education, healthcare, infrastructure, the things that build a stronger country. Non-developmental spending is about making sure today is stable and secure. That means funding the police, the courts, and all the administrative stuff. And really, you can't have one without the other.
Okay, so now we have a handle on what the government is spending money on. But that brings us to the $1 million, or I guess the 39 lakh crore question, why does it just keep going up? Well, it turns out there are three huge forces driving this train.
We're going to see how these three areas, politics, society, and the economy, all feed into each other. It's everything from the promises politicians make to get elected to the basic social needs of a country that's getting bigger, and finally, the tough economic facts that every government has to deal with.
So let's start with the political reasons. As countries become more democratic, people naturally start expecting more from their government, right? They want better services, more support. That creates a ton of pressure to spend. And then, at the very same time, you've got what's happening in the rest of the world. Global instability means you need a strong national defense, and that is never cheap. And when I say not cheap, I mean it. That need for security comes with a massive price tag. Just look at India's defense spending. Between 1981 and 2016, it grew by more than 43 times. That is a huge amount of money and resources, all poured into making national security a top priority.
Okay, moving on from politics, let's talk about social causes. A big part of this is just basic math, really. As the population grows, you just need more of everything. More schools, more hospitals, more roads. Simple as that. But it's also about how our ideas have changed about what a government is for. We now expect social safety nets. Things like pensions and unemployment benefits. They've become standard.
And get this isn't some new phenomenon. A German economist named Adolf Wagner actually called this way back in the 19th century. He had this theory, now called Wagner's Law, that said, as countries get more developed and wealthier, their governments will just naturally start doing more and more. We're basically just watching his prediction come true right before our eyes.
And that brings us to our third driver, the cold, hard economic reasons. You've got inflation, of course. That's the easy one to understand. Every year, the same stuff just costs more money. But there's also the fact that governments deliberately invest in public companies, and then you have the explosive growth of cities. All those new city dwellers need massive amounts of new infrastructure. We're talking water, power, sanitation, you name it. And this chart really puts that economic strategy on full display. Just look at the investment in India's 5-year plans. It went from under 2,000 crore rupees in the first plan all the way up to almost 16 lakh crore in the 10th. I mean, that's not just simple growth. That's a conscious decision by the government to use its wallet to steer the direction of the entire national economy. So we've got our three big reasons pushing that spending number higher and higher: political, social, and economic. But it's important to remember this spending isn't just happening to the government. It's a tool the government is actively using. So what's the end game? What is the government actually trying to accomplish with all this cash?
Well, it usually boils down to four main objectives. First, to improve everyone's overall social and economic well-being. Second, to step in and stabilize the economy when things get rough, like during a recession. Third, to build all that crucial infrastructure that powers future growth. And finally, a really big one, to try and reduce inequality by closing the gap between the rich and the poor.
All right, let's pull all these threads together. Let's zoom out and look at the big picture. When you add it all up, what role does all this public spending actually play in building a country?
Well, a great way to think about it is as the engine of development. It's the government that lays the foundation, the roads, the power grids, the schools, that the entire private sector needs to function and grow. It's what can kickstart industries that are too big or risky for private companies to handle. It can help make sure the whole country develops, not just a few rich areas. And yeah, it's a key way to move resources to the people who need them the most.
So, at the end of the day, government spending is so much more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about the choices we make that literally define the kind of society we live in. It's a super powerful tool for shaping both our economy and our communities. And that means the real question isn't just, why does spending go up? We know it does. The much more important question is, okay, so what should our priorities be? And that is the conversation that truly matters.